This is the Just Live podcast with Dan and Suzie Potter, episode 98.
What is the link between hope, joy, and peace?
Welcome to Rhythms of Hope, Part 4.
We begin in 22 seconds.
Live life, see the good days in it, just live. Live life, see the good days, see the good days. Follow your potential. And live life, see the good days in it. Thrive.
Your life is a remarkable story, an adventure that only you can create.
We exist to motivate and equip you to live fully alive.
Welcome into the Just Live podcast. Today it's all about trust in God as part of our Rhythms of Hope series.
This is episode 98, and my name is Dan.
I'm Suzie. Together we are Doozy.
Today we're talking about trust. Trust.
This is a big concept.
One.
Big concept.
Today we live in a world where we mistrust. But if we're going to have hope from God, if we're going to have joy and peace, then we must understand that we have to trust.
Yeah, so this is our year of hope. 2025 is our theme is hope, and we really wanted to dive into it, and so we have been in this series called Rhythms of Hope. And Romans 15:13 gives us some key concepts that help us consider hope.
There's a bit of a circle. I want you to see this circle where there's a God of hope, and that God of hope gives us joy, and that joy brings peace as we trust in Him, that we too may be overflowing with hope.
Yeah, so these are some of the key concepts from Romans 15:13. We love the way Romans 15:13 goes in the Passion Translation. We love different versions of the Bible because they kind of explain it differently. And it says, "Now may the God of hope fill you to overflowing with uncontainable joy." I love that concept. And perfect peace. If you haven't watched the last 3 episodes, we talked about God, the fountain of hope, overflowing with uncontainable joy and perfect peace. And today we go into the next part, as you trust in Him. And may the power of the Holy Spirit continually surround your life with super abundance until you radiate with hope.
Yeah. And if you want any more in this area of trust, you also can look at Just Live Podcast 007. 007 has to do with what is the story you are choosing. What is it you're building your trust upon? So you can also go there, but we're going to jump in right now looking at trust today.
So Rhythms of Hope is a 5-part series. We've already talked about God, the fountain of hope, filled to overflowing with uncontainable joy was our next episode. And last week was filled with perfect peace. And
this
today
week is as
trust
you trust in
God.
One of my dad's favorite verses, I can hear him saying it. It's from Proverbs 3, 5, and 6. And from the time I was a little child, he would always say, now remember, in Proverbs 3, 5, and 6, it says, trust in the Lord with all your heart, lean not on your own understanding, in all your ways submit to Him, and He will make your paths straight. There's a lot going on in there, but it starts with trust in the Lord. And then there's some promises that goes with that. And the same thing is, if we're going to have hope, joy, and peace, we must trust in Him.
I don't know if you notice in this verse, but it became very clear to me. Trust in the Lord with all your heart. So there's some emotions going on there. And lean not on your own understanding.
That's
the
some
way
thoughts.
you think.
Mental.
In all your ways, submit to Him.
All your ways, that's actions.
Yep, actions. He'll make your path straight. So this is a direction. If you're going to trust in God, then there's some direction.
There's also the submitting to Him, which is spiritual.
Yeah. So there's a lot of things going on in this if we want to actually have trust.
A couple different metaphors we need to look at. The first one is a bridge. I don't know of a time in your life that you've had the opportunity to go across bridges. We've gone through some beautiful bridges in our time. I've actually jumped off a few. Not too high, but enjoyed
into water below.
Into the water
is
below.
Always
Beautiful
a really great
thing.
time.
But I want you to get this concept that a bridge is going from one place to another. And you don't drive your car and go, I wonder if this bridge will hold me. You just drive across. You're looking at the mountains. You're looking at the ocean. And that's the way it is with God. That God is there taking you from one place to another as we trust in him. He is that bridge strong enough to move us across.
There's another picture. It's of a compass. So a compass has a true north on it, and God's guidance is like a compass, always pointing in the right direction when we choose to trust him. I also love the picture of GPS. We now live in Seattle, but we grew up...
Which is your modern day compass.
Yes, we grew up in Michigan, and in Michigan it's farmlands. So there was 1 mile square, north, south, east, west. I learned my compass directions.
No crooked roads.
Up in there straight on. Then we moved to Georgia for a while.
No
and
straight roads.
Lots of curves and around bends, and north, south, east, and west didn't work
Didn't
anymore.
happen.
And then we are now based out of Seattle,
Now
Washington.
everything is up or down.
Up and down, nothing is straight, all these crazy roads. I honestly never drive without GPS. I always have the GPS on because depending on the traffic, depending on the time of day, you can take multiple routes to get almost any place. And so Dan drives a lot more than I do. I'm a great navigator, I'm a great passenger. He drives more, so he doesn't always use GPS, but I need it. I'll confess, no problem. I always put on my GPS because I want to go in the right direction. I want that guidance to know where I'm going, how many more lights, how many more stop signs. I need that, and I think that's my picture of trust is in this GPS.
Earlier today, I was talking to a guy he's a potter. He takes clay and he makes some beautiful, beautiful things. And
So
he was
gorgeous.
talking about, for him, it wasn't the bridge, it wasn't GPS, it wasn't a compass. It was the idea of the potter and the clay. And that the clay, sometimes it comes up and it's cracked and you have to start again. And if you look at trust through the eyes of the clay, this is incredible, because just as I'm getting there, I'm getting there.
We are the clay.
Yeah. I'm almost a pot. Boom. Okay, I have to trust again. I think sometimes in our life, that's the way it is. That we put our clay in the potter's hands, and he molds us into what he wants us to be. We trust him.
Yeah. So when we're thinking about trust in God, we also have to pull in the concept of faith. So faith is believing without being able to see. And faith is really important in trust.
Yeah. It begins where understanding ends. And I think it's the same thing off with hope. If you can see it, if you own it, a glass in my hand, I can't say I hope I have a glass in my hand. I have a glass in my hand. But if I'm saying, I hope I can get there and get something to drink, that's something you don't see, but it's out there. It's something you desire, something you long for. I trust there will be water there when I finish the marathon, which I've never done before.
So you have faith that somebody's going to have it, or somebody's going to supply it, or you will have.
And you trust in that.
Yeah, you'll be able to do that. We're talking today about not just trusting ourselves, because we don't have that endless supply. In the first part of this Rhythms of Hope series, we were talking about God, the fountain of hope, so we can get our hope from God. And we also need to trust in God. When I think about trust, I really think about Dan and I. And there are a lot of things that I don't have as high of quality of, or even have the capacity for, that Dan owns. He's super time oriented. I am not time oriented. I don't have really good concepts of priorities. I have lots of bubbles of things that need to be done, and they all have equal weight. And I need to trust Dan to actually help me choose what's a highest priority. Now, he knows my heart. He cares about me. And so he knows what's going to be important for my time or for my energy, and he helps me know. So I can come to him in a day, and we always have these, we call them powwows in our day. And I come to him and I say, this is all the things that I think I'm going to do today. And he's like, Susie, you can get one of those done. I'm like, really? I just don't have any concept of when I'm in the midst of it, I can do the job to the end. But time orientation and me, they're not as clear. They're not as clear.
She's really good at GPS.
So I really trust, yes, I really trust Dan to help me in this. And I think this is kind of the way we're able to do with God. It's not like I lack. I have some things, but I need that support. And I completely trust Dan to help me weigh those things out, help me make decisions about time, about, just even knowing how many things I can get done in a day or in the afternoon or the evening. And I think it's very similar. Dan is not God, but it's a good picture for me of God, how I can trust God because God is faithful. He has the capacity for things, and I can really put my trust and my faith in him.
Wow. Thank you for letting me off the hook. I don't have to be God. That's huge.
But it's true. I need to trust you, right?
That's true. And I need to trust you for things. And I trust you now for Suzie Scientist to give us a little lesson.
Oh, scientific insight. When we're thinking about trust, research on stress management, here we go, back to stress management, shows that trusting a higher power, so we're talking about trust in God, it fosters emotional resilience. So it helps us to be able to bounce and to keep going when things emotionally are a little bit heavy. And it also reduces anxiety. We talked about peace and anxiety in the last episode, and like trusting in a higher power, which is what we're talking about here, it has these positive benefits: resilience emotionally and reducing anxiety. And this aligns with some of the findings of positive psychology.
Which is strange.
Yeah, so I love this, thinking positively and what's going on. When we surrender to a higher purpose, a higher power, to God, it enhances life satisfaction. We love to call it living fully alive. Actually, living in that space where we are being who we were created to be and we're satisfied with our life.
And I love it that the Bible principles and science line up. There's so many times that people are like, is it scientific or is it biblical?
Science shows
yes.
us. Yeah.
Yes, science shows the things that we're taught, that it's that trust that brings the hope, that science has already proved that they go together. And I love that. So there's 3 reasons for trusting in God. 1, it frees you from worry.
Yeah, trusting in God helps you release the control that we feel like we have to have if we're only trusting ourselves or our experiences, and it helps us with peace.
Yeah, it builds dependence upon Him, upon God.
So leaning on God deepens your relationship with Him. That has a lot of positive benefits.
And it leads you to God's best.
So trust aligns your steps with His and helps you in that perfect peace space that we were talking about before. Talking about God's best, one of the values that Dan and I have for each other is we believe the best for each other. So
because there's conflicts, and sometimes she'll say things and it's like, oh man, that was like a knife to the heart. Now I can think that was a knife to the heart, or I can basically go, you know what, she didn't mean that. She said something and I took it wrongly. So I choose to believe the best.
Yeah, and I choose to believe the best about Dan, and I think this is the way it is when we're trusting in God. I don't know what kind of God picture you have, but if you have a God that is like looking for you to make a mistake and ready to hit you down and ready to discipline you, it will be very difficult, I'm assuming, for you to trust God. But if you trust in the true character of God that we find in the Bible and our personal experience, we can trust Him because He's always been faithful. He always shows up, not always in the same way as we would hope for, or we would expect, or we would desire, but He shows up in a way because He has the big picture. And if we really trust in God being the best for us and knowing us and creating us, so organizing things that are really good for us long term, then we can really trust Him and entrust ourselves to Him because He has our best in mind.
So one of the things I would challenge you to do is take a little paper out and make a column, 2 columns in it. One of them, what are things that are easy for you to trust God in?
Ooh, yeah, this is good.
It's easy that there's going to be air to breathe. I trust God for that. But then also, what's maybe a little more difficult?
Yeah.
And in one of those difficult ones, maybe you can say, this year, I want to work to trust more in that area. Because when you do trust more, you'll receive more of that joy, peace, and hope.
Yeah, so if you're having any difficulty with trust or any area in your life that we can help you with, that we can support you in through coaching, through connection, please reach out to us in any of the ways that we're connected. We'd love to do that.
And may you live fully alive as you love your life, your world, and your God. My name's Dan.
I'm Susie. Together we are Doozy.
Live fully.
And love fully. Thanks for joining us, and may you trust in God.